started here just in a moment. Oh, yes. I know it. You know it. We're getting started just here in a moment. Give me a second. I have a cat under my feet. Target. All right, let's just get started. Hold on. Boink. Hi, there we are. And scene. Good to see you. Hello. Happy Monday. Boy, first of all, before I even get into what I'm going to truly say, I have to, hold on. I must, hold on one second. Is that not working? Is it working? Okay, it's working. I gotta say, oh, quit it. What is happening? Rats, my little vertical thing. Is it being weird? Is everything okay? My little recording thing won't work. What are your settings on here, you maniac? This is this, and this goes to there. Oh, I know. It's too high codec. Never mind. I'm not going to get into the nerdy part of it. I don't have time for that today. There's just so much, and you guys are going to be mad at me already. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. There we go. I look rested. I did get rested. I basically was in a coma all of yesterday. Because it was, let's just start out. It was Can't Stop Lying's birthday yesterday. So a happy birthday to him. I was debating whether to do it, Saturday during the show. We had so many technical things. I was like in the middle of this rushing. It seemed bad. So all day is Can't Stop Lying Day. I'm just telling you. So this morning show, I expect the chat room to constantly annoy him with happy birthday messages and the like. And aggravate him with it and just tell him how wonderful he is and all that kind of stuff. And I have gifts for him, but I have to deliver them in person, and I'm under it. We have an exchange of prisoners coming up, so hopefully we'll be able to do it during that time. But for the record, that I'm just declaring today International Can't Stop Lying Day. Just so you know, it is. That's just for the record. So yeah, his birthday was yesterday. He's perpetually 29 years old, as far as we know, and and today and this morning show and the afternoon show dedicated to Can't Stop Lying. I'm just saying. Um, and we'll catch up on a bunch of that later, and we'll I feel like at some point we'll talk about the legend of Can't Stop Lying and have to do a sit down where we just kind of I don't know, CSL, if we're going to just have to have a podcast of our own just to tell the backstory of your introduction to the show and your unique position to blindside me with garbage every single day. I swear to God, you have the dream gig of people who don't like me. You get to send me right-wing videos to have to deal with, and I have to deal with them. I think that's hilarious, and yeah. So, needless to say, I'm serious. There are probably people lining up who would go like, "Yeah, I'd like to torture him that way. I'd like to send him the worst Glenn Beck videos I could possibly find." I would love to have CSL on. We'll work that out at his leisure. But I'm for it. I do laugh about it sometimes. I know you do. And like, oh, he's gonna hate this one. Like, oh, this is gonna do it. Like, he knows what sets me off at some point. Which is, by the way, why I'm going to, and happily, if I may, if I do say so my damn self, why I am happily going to disappoint you guys this morning. I know, your thought of Imelda. Your thanks on the Imelda Marcos Broadway musical. I think it's more of a statement about Broadway than it is about Imelda Marcos. She's been dead for a long time. Although I think, having kind of a musical, a comedy musical about greed is not a bad idea, I suppose. Unless they're trying to make it like Evita, but with lots more shoes. Who cares? Anyways. All right, lots to talk about this morning, and you guys are going to be, I know some of you guys are going to be mad at me because I'm going to be nothing but good news on this Monday. And and not the least of which is that we've been blessed with another year of Can't Stop Lying among us. And many more. But seriously, the good news is pouring in. And I have to say, and it's not all like Schadenfreude kind of good news where we get to revel in Donald Trump's problems, which we absolutely do. Let's just be abundantly clear. Today, is almost unique in how much shit is hitting the fan at Mar-a-Lago, and it's just going to get worse. And his whole like threatening people, and that I guess. That he's trying to get people to murder people on his behalf. It's nothing new. He's just it's ratcheting up. The interesting thing though is that there is a like an inversion on the power of those kind of cries. The less dog whistly they get, the more overt they get, the less effective they are, which is fascinating. Like if he gets to the point where he's gone from I could shoot somebody and not lose any supporters to oh, sorry, Imelda Marcos is not dead. I assumed she was buried in her shoes. I'm not up on my Imelda Marcos trivia right now. Because why? Oh, because I don't care. Anyways, so when will it stop? It will stop with it's not going to stop on a hard line. It's going to stop on a obvious fade. And the thing is, his own supporters, the ones who might even do some of this stuff with lone wolves being what they are, and that's the biggest concern. Always. Gonzo, what's happening? You're still the best Trump evaluator. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's I'm very proud to be right all the time. Anyways, his supporters, the vast majority of them who might have been edging QAnon style towards some sort of act of violence after like Sound of Freedom made money at the box office and nobody fucking pitched a fit, blah, blah, blah. After that has happened, they feel there's a pressure valve coming off. They're allowing, like in reality. And so Trump's screams just seem like old news. And the more he directly asks for violence, the fewer people are willing to engage in it for. It's a very strange inversion, but it's true. Now, here's why, and I'm going to get to, mostly this afternoon, we'll talk about why his world is crashing down around his ears in a unique way. It often is, because he's the king of losers, and Donald Trump is a loser, and he's always been a loser. He's so much of a loser that he was born with advantages that most of us would strive all of our lives to get to that level of quality of life and available funds and credit and all that shit and connection and all that stuff. You work your ass off to get to that line. He was born at that line, and he's managed to fuck it up. He's the only man in history, and I would even include Richard Nixon in this, that becoming, well, and again, Lincoln and Kennedy aside, this is a whole other set, that ruined his life by becoming president of the United States. Just saying. So anyways, we'll get to that later, like I said. Now, there's a couple of things, and these are, I can't even express to you how absolutely enormous these things are, that your life in the next decade is going to change in a positive sense, and the way humanity does its business on the planet is going to change in a positive sense in such an extraordinary way that it's almost like, try to remember right now what it was like before you had a cell phone. Try to remember. I know you can. I remember what it was like before a cell phone, but do you really? Do you remember the feeling of it where you're like, I don't know, I suppose I could call somebody when I get home. You remember that? I remember that feeling in the abstract, but I don't remember that feeling. It's not visceral anymore because it's so normal. We've become so acclimatized, right? We remember it you don't remember the visceral part of it, right? It becomes like a childhood memory at this point. It's been so long, right? Okay. The kids will get it done. We are the kids. Adults will get it done. I believe the children are our future is a ridiculous statement, because I believe adults are the future. Children become adults, and people aren't children for very long. So, absolutely treat them well and let them lead the way and show them all the beauty they should feel inside something. I'm sorry, Dionne Warwick, for egging that right out of the gate. So anyways, phone booths were fun. Yes, indeed. All right. So let me start. Where do we go? Let's just start with what's the easiest to understand. Where do I even begin with it? Okay. All right, let's just go straight to here. There was a nuclear fusion breakthrough, as opposed to fission. Instead of separating, instead of divide and conquer when it comes to atomic energy, this is it coming together, fusing these two things together. And you might, if you're a big fan of the Val Kilmer movie, The Saint, you'll recall that cold fusion was the primary, it was the infinity stone of that storyline, right? That's what they were. She had that Elizabeth Shue's character had had figured out cold fusion, and if she could just do it to the world, it would be free energy forever, and you could make there's more energy in a gallon of seawater. There's enough energy in a gallon of seawater to run the Earth forever. That kind of stuff. All right. Just last December, Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in California, that's right, Californians, well done, focused the world's most powerful laser on a peppercorn size of a diamond capsule filled with hydrogen, and the beams delivered 2.5 megajoules of energy, 2.5 megajoules, triggering a reaction that fused the hydrogen into helium and released 3.15 megajoules. That's right. The amount of energy going in was less than the amount of energy coming out. The difference, a little more than a megajoule, which is, look, nothing to sneeze at, is roughly the amount of energy released by a hand grenade. The result, known as ignition or net energy gain, and that's the key, meaning more energy out than in, was an accomplishment that scientists have been pursuing for decades. Let me tell you, folks, folks, people. They have been working on this as long as they have been working on. I would argue longer than they've been working on the nuclear bomb, which is the exact opposite of this direction of energy. And like the idea of being able to do this is a game changer as far as energy production on Earth and waste and all kinds of other things. Like, okay, so it suggested that the core physics of controlled fusion had been cracked, creating the possibility of a process to produce cheap, carbon-free electricity. After several unsuccessful attempts, the same lab was able to replicate the achievement in July last month. Folks, I don't think even people recognize how incredibly enormous this year in the history and future of humanity is. Absolute, like, next level, like a leap forward on the same plane as agriculture. It just huge. Okay, how close is commercial fusion? It's a ways off, but still. Even with the U.S. and other governments pushing bold visions in various technologies, the most optimistic experts say we're about a decade away from the first fusion power plant delivering electricity to the grid. That's why I said 10 years. And it's going to happen sooner. You know why? AI. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. And the 3D printing and fabrication of reactors and how small they can be, but you'll see. Anyways, most peg it at 20 or 30 years from now. Science advanced in recent years. Fusion began to attract a new class of investors. More private companies jumped into the race. Investment surged to $2.6 billion in 2021 from about $300 million in 2020. It fell back to $521 million in 2022, which is ironic because that's when it became cheaper. It's like it once it becomes possible, it's so cheap once it's functioning that it's not even going to cost that much. Oh God. Anyways, what are the technologies? Fusion research has benefited from advancements in supercomputing, 3D printing, and superconducting magnets. There are different approaches. Inertial confinement. The December milestone proved that this method, shooting lasers at hydrogen-filled pellets, can work, but the reaction was exceptionally brief, not the kind of continuous process that power plants typically use, and for now, at least, those pellets are expensive and time-consuming to make. The magnetic confinement, the more widely used method, deploys powerful magnetic fields to contain the plasma, which is the big thing that looks like the arc reactor in Iron Man. That charges the superheated gas, which is around the thing, which is what the glowing stuff is. So it can sustain a fusion reaction. It requires temperatures far hotter than the sun, in the range of 150 million degrees Celsius. Most efforts use a Soviet-era design known as a tokamak, which features a super-cooled donut-shaped chamber to hold the plasma, or variant known as a stellarator, which is stellarator. Yeah, all right. Other alternatives. Startups are pursuing hybrid technologies for their own unique ideas. One of the best-funded companies, California's TAE Technologies, uses accelerators to suffuse plasma with high-energy particles, making it easier to manage. Now, that's all academic at this point. The fact that they were able to recreate it is the story. Now, let's take that one, if we can, or whatever. And this is all over the place, by the way. There was a reason why this story is in, like, why the science people. I love that they're using, like, some sort of, like, dual laser beam something out of Star Wars, it seems, to show this. And yes, some of this is going to be, is going to bore and annoy you. I'm sorry. But this is such good news that it's going to, you need to know that this is, if, let's say, in 10 years, people who are not tech and live a kind of, off the grid kind of a lifestyle and like to picnic and shit like that, stuff I like to do, your life is going to change immensely in about a decade. And everyone around you's life is going to change immensely in about a decade because of what happened right now. Okay? Now, on top of that, and is my volume's low? That's very strange. Why? No, okay. It seems all right on my end. So now, always messing with me. Always. All right. So, huge, enormous leap forward by itself. Singularly, this story is, in any other decade where we weren't dealing with this Florida lunatic asshole, that in and of itself, like, would be the only thing we'd be talking about. There would be just science special after science special. It would eat the news cycle if it wasn't for all this nonsense we're constantly dealing with. Now, on top of that, where is it? The next one is, oh yes, how does it get to you? Now, the key is the complaint. How much energy is going to be available in a very small format? We're talking about eventually, depending on how fast the development goes. And again, because of AI and because of the computational power of new computers, the speed at which advancement can happen is reaching sort of a Moore's law arc or collapse, depending on how you look at it. I'm scaring all the Republicans away with my science. Yeah. Oh yeah. Wait. It gets better. So the idea of having some sort of like mild nuke power source that's relatively indestructible. I'm sure if you really tried, you could. But around you as a power source that you're like, this runs the house, chunk, and then you live wherever you want to live because you don't need a power grid anymore, is going to be a huge thing. That's the next big thing as far as living. So everybody's off the grid technically in terms of power delivery, but the power delivery will be at such a high level, and the regulation of it will require such fine computing work that to have it available in first big cities, then small cities, and then towns, and then houses, and all that scale, which is what's coming. Let me just tell you, that's on its way. That's how life will be. Whether we're around for it when it gets here, that's a debate. But it's a huge thing. But how do you deliver it? Well, this guy. This is also happening right fucking now. LK99, ladies and gentlemen. And by the way, this thing is levitating off of this magnet as the thing, whatever. And to me, it looks like, well, I mean, what you put a piece of like unrefined magnet and it's polarized different from the other magnet, shouldn't it tilt up and wiggle? And then the other, but okay, that's not what's happening here. This is actual, it's huge. Anyways, just trust me on this. LK99 is this new primary ceramic superconductor that they have just discovered / made. Okay. And I love the article on this because chances are it's nothing, but if it's something, it's a big something, right? Which is the same thing they were saying in December about the fusion experiment that happened again. Okay. And again, this is the kind of thing that gives you the power and the adaptability and the retention of it through things like LK99 and the like. This is what gives you electric planes that can fly forever. And don't get me started again on diamond nuclear batteries. We'll get to that too. All right. In late July, a group of researchers published 2 papers reporting an extraordinary discovery, a superconductor that works at normal temperatures and pressures. Dubbed LK99, the material consists of a mineral apatite doped with copper atoms. Right on, man. Like conventional superconductors, the authors say, it can conduct electricity resistance-free, but crucially without the need for supercool or high-pressure conditions. So most superconductors, basically energy can fly through the tunnel of the molecular structure of a wire, say copper, or silver is actually better, but copper is more available and cheaper. So silver and copper are the best, but that are not ceramic superconductors or the like. But you have to cool them down so that the atoms inside them are moving so slowly that nothing bounces off, because that's what makes it go through. It's just like, imagine if it's like a tunnel like this, and you're in you ever see one of those movies where somebody's driving a car in a car chase and they go into a tunnel and they're driving against traffic, right? And you recognize, because you're a regular moviegoer, the difference between, say, the car chase in Ronin, which was done with full speed cars, or you go, wait a minute, I think those cars are basically parked, and then you're just zipping by them and they're trying to create the illusion by going 60 miles an hour this way. It looks like 2 cars going 30 opposite directions, or 15, whatever. Anyways, point being is that you're like, I think that car's stopped. Really, this car chase is not that exciting. I think all the cars going the opposite direction are just kind of barely rolling, and that's often the case. I don't want to blow it for you, but yeah. Anyways, Nowadays, by the way, I don't know why they don't just CG all the cars, because it's super fucking easy, but that's a conversation for another time. So, uh, the same thing is happening in a superconductor. They slow down by freezing the tunnel essentially, and all the cars that would be going this way or going across the lanes suddenly get in their lane and stay there, and the energy can find a way to slip through, and that's what makes superconductors so fast, essentially, is that the atoms in them are not moving around. So the chance of them bouncing into an electron and deflecting some of the energy and turning it into heat, which is why copper coils and that kind of shit get hot, is because that is little teeny ricochets of electrons bouncing off of the other atoms in there. Does that make sense? Okay. When you do a superconductor, you freeze the whole thing, so everything is still, so they just kind of zip straight through. It almost creates a tunnel. Well, they've created a material that effectively has an atomic tunnel and a large enough space of nothing in this loop of atoms that allows the energy to go right through. Okay, that's when they freeze it, that's essentially, what you're doing. But now they've created this substance that very well, at room temperature, you don't have to freeze it to slow this down, creates this kind of carbon fiber, almost like, have you ever seen this kind of like molecular structures where they craft a molecular shape? They effectively make a hoop and then they attach it all together. That's the theory, anyways. And apparently it works. And it works at room temperature. And once you can make it, it's pretty cheap. It's not even I forget the materials they make at a caution is wide and peer review. This is next. Some experts have called the experiment sloppy, blah, blah, blah. Right. Many voice skepticism. This is, and yet, implications are profound. Almost overnight, the scientific landscape could change. The superpower of superconductors as the electricity moves through them without losing energy resistance, provided they're cooled to negative 320 Fahrenheit, subject to colossal pressure. I mean, what I described this better. Okay. Take the power grid. Using superconducting materials, energy loss from generating and transmitting electricity, currently an immense challenge, would be eliminated, thereby slashing costs and reducing emissions, because we lose so much of that energy in inefficiency along the way, because the materials we use to transport the energy from where it's made to where it's turned into a television signal or light bulbs or whatever. Whatever you use electricity in your house. It's none of my business. Not here to yuck your yum. Just telling you the truth. Okay. There's more. Levitating trains, gliding above superconducting rails could be more commonplace. Medical imaging devices become smaller, cheaper, and more precise. This is the other thing too, is that MRIs would become not only normal but arguably handheld. The interference from an MRI, they have to shield the room it's in, and they have to shield it against itself, and you can't have any metal on your body, and blah, blah, it's a nightmare. Well, this ends all that. This works. That's that. Then you mix this with like supercomputers that can tell, and then genetic testing of, say, cancers and the like, and you have dialed in cancer treatments specific to this strain of cancer cell that you have. End of story. That's that. Like, that's enormous. And relatively outpatient care. Yeah. So, I mean, because of where it translates the ability to have superconductors and supercomputers, and the amount of energy needed can be done in a much more confined space that you have and again, this will come in stages. It will shrink and shrink and shrink to the point where I don't know we're going to be anywhere near McCoy's little machine that waves over your body and then just readdresses through certain types of radiation that can be dialed in specifically to only kill the cell of the cancer that's in you at that point. But it's clearly a couple hundred years from now, not off the table at all. And then again, you go, all right, well, how fast? What's stopping us? Well, usually it's modeling and available materials. That's it. So modeling it becomes easy with supercomputers and AI. As far as materials go, like, okay, we need another material that allows that's resonant at this level, or that can put out this kind of magnetic field or invert this kind of magnetic field and maintain it and sustain it. We either got to find it dig it up someplace, and there's got to be enough of it for it to be useful, or we can design it and create it out of other elements in that regard. And then you're talking about anti-gravity and all that kind of shit, and that's very exciting. So, okay, then I love it. On the other hand, LK99 may come to nothing. Sometimes things are too good to be true, or just that, such as the nature of scientific progress, trials, errors, and absolutely true. That said, though, the ability to reform this, and if it works and doesn't work again for some particular reason, because of the computer power available, and because of AI, and because of the just the materials available now versus during Tesla's time, for example, Nikola Tesla, the guy, not the pretend company, that during the availability of that kind of maintenance of the knowledge and expansion of the knowledge to be used and modified based on available materials and time and all that kind of stuff, you speed up the process of fixing what was wrong with it. If you run into a dead end because of any particular material reason, remedying that is possible now more than at any other time in history. So there. Anyways, so that's here's the other one. Okay, this is, I promised I was going to irritate you with good news. This just made me laugh this morning. This is from fucking Bloomberg. The US economy is great. Stop worrying about it. There's always the possibility that an expansion could turn into a recession, but strong growth is not by itself cause for concern. And I love look at the language on this. Please, can you guys, how many times have I told you guys? How many times have I told you guys that yes, it's an opinion piece, but this is from the Bloomberg opinion. This isn't like the New York Times or Washington Post trying to be nice about this. But look at that part right there. It says, but strong growth is not by itself cause for concern. Think about that fucking sentence for a second. Have you ever read a more asshole-ish sentence in your fucking life? This is how Wall Street and the investment class looks at the real economy. And there are those who have woken up to the idea, and like I've said, we've talked about retail investors and the total change of the landscape in investing and in the buoyancy of stocks because of it, that is confounding the Wall Streeters right now, right? We've talked about this, but there's a level of those folks that that are really struggling to try and figure out how to make this bad news. And this person is talking to those people. If that makes sense. And that to me, that sentence, there is always the possibility that an expansion can turn into a recession. Sure. Right. That's a sentence we've heard many times before. But strong growth is not by itself a cause for concern is fucking amazing. That is, if anything could sum up the idiocy of economic news in the general mythology, that I have to say comes largely from this idea that we see everywhere, which is, let's just pretend COVID didn't happen, and we'll talk about the economic pressures or growth or whatever in terms of what were other recessions like, even though they didn't follow a worldwide shutdown, right? That's the problem with the argument, is that they want this equation where they're solving for X, but they want to remove the largest number in the equation, right? That's conventionally what I would refer to as stupid, and yet it is fucking everywhere. It is watch the conversation. There's occasionally, I've shown you guys this, it's occasionally this lean like, well, of course the pandemic, but and they'll talk about it in those terms. Well, of course the pandemic, but no, not of course the fucking pandemic. The entire world is changing because of what happened. Our inflation in the United States is largely based on the idea of We're getting out of China. That movement in and of itself would be a 2008-like shift in the economy without the pandemic being the impetus for it. And yet everybody's talking about like, well, I don't know. Well, yeah, of course. I mean, obviously we had the pandemic, but no, the pandemic erased at least $50 trillion from the Western economy and absolutely cadavered the Chinese economy, which was already on its heels. I just find that, like, listen to this. And you think, oh, shit. You think, like, it couldn't get, read the top sentence. I'll even, is it possible for economic news to be a little too good? If many economic worries seem to be dwindling, is that reason to be scared? What the fuck? What? Could Bidenomics solving all the problems that the pandemic and Trump's tax cut put us in actually be bad for 9 of us? My fucking God. Yeah, of course it's Bloomberg. But again, this is somebody trying to talk people off the cliff at Bloomberg. A cliff where they're going to jump because making too much money too quick makes them nervous. Because the assumption has been before that this kind of growth is the result of a bubble. The problem is bubbles don't follow a deflation, and the COVID itself was a giant popping of the normal bubble that we all live on. It again, we've talked about this a lot, this idea that there's so much money in the economy. How much they threw money at everything. They were just printing money. The money printer go burr. The money, they were throwing money. There's too much cash in circulation. And without recognizing that the quantitative easing and the flooding of money into the system was to the tune of $6 trillion, with some grants on top of that, maybe over the course of the last 3 years, $9 trillion put into the economy. The hole created by COVID was $20 trillion minimum, instantly, within months. $20 trillion wiped the fuck out. And you cannot patch a $20 trillion hole with $6 trillion. I don't give a fuck who your accountant is. And pretending that the government threw $26 trillion at the problem because they added 6 means you are taking, again, in the equation that you were solving for X, you're taking $20 trillion out of the fucking equation. It makes no sense. It's the weirdest blind spot I have ever seen. Ugh. Central Scrutinizer, I'm glad you're regaining your health. That's a wonderful thing. I just saw that pass by in the chat, so that's always a plus. They don't want a good economy. They want to get rid of books and trans people. Right. Well, that's the thing. That's what you would scream about, because you can't talk about the economy. I think ultimately, anytime you hear a Republican go, the transes, oh, the transes, oh, books and books and transes and the books and the transes. Like, can't talk about the economy, I guess, huh? Scared to talk about the economy? Oh, yeah. Notice you haven't talked about the border in a little bit. Ever since Biden ended Title 42, which was Trump's idea, the number of border crossings is cadavered. So maybe that's why you're talking about the transes and the books and the stuff. Again, maybe that's why. Because everything else, your argument is dying or is already dead and you fucking know it. But all right. I'm getting this. I just find this to be hilarious. Okay, so try the number. Okay, there we go. To be sure, matters are hardly perfect. The number of job openings has been falling. We literally have more job openings than actual working age people in this country. So how it can only fall to an equal number, to the point where you have nearly 100% employment, and even that is based on a transitory shift. If people feel more wage safety, or they're able to build up a small war chest before deciding to jump to a better or bigger job and the like, during that period of transition, some people are technically unemployed, although they don't get unemployment insurance. They just quit and then go get a better job, and they're looking for a better, because it's out there, and they're maybe thinking of moving as part of the process, which should also be something that's available to you as a human being in a modern society and shouldn't be weird at all. And it's increasingly not. Shit, you can get a better job these days just by saying I'll work from an office. I'm not kidding. One of the easiest ways for somebody to jump tiers from one business to another, or even in their own company, is to say I'll come back to the office. I mean, they gave people bonuses initially, and that bonus has an ROI on it, a return on investment. It only goes so far. But other companies are looking for people who are willing to work there. So a bunch of people are like, yeah, I'll show up. Betty's Dungeon says the unemployment number is an illusion anyway. They only count people actively looking for work, as if all people not looking for work don't exist or aren't unemployed. Well, the other thing too is, or should be employed. Stay-at-home moms, stay-at-home dads. If you're counting those folks, they're not working because they're living a life, and their partner is. And the better wage, the stronger wages get, the more you have quote unquote unemployment, because employment is not your primary goal in life unless you have a career and want a job, and you're the breadwinner in the family or for yourself. But if you're just a stay-at-home parent, for example, you're not unemployed. Employment is not a factor. You are not seeking a job. You have not lost a job. You are simply living, and the other person is providing for the household or whatever. But or other persons, or a parent, if you're still living at home at a certain age. So the idea that everybody has to be employed, that 100% employment would literally mean everybody who wants a job has one. That doesn't mean everybody who's of working age is employed, for the record, which is another thing too. Like, tell everybody who can work is working. We're not there yet, which is a bunch of commie nonsense. If the Republicans are griping about, we need everybody who's of working age to be working, like, that sounds like some Marxist shit right there. How about this? How about wages are strong enough, and careers and and labor value is at a point, and productivity is at an equal point, to where not everybody has to work, and the person who wants to work the most in the household makes enough to provide for a couple of or three people. Weird, I know. How do they determine the unemployment rate? It's not employment claims. No, it's a mishmash of people who were and still are, because you're technically counted as unemployed for a period of time after you leave a job, even if you're not seeking another one. Like I said, if you become a house husband or a housewife or what have you, you'll still be counted as unemployed in that. Oh, thank you. Oh, that's very sweet, Kay. Thank you for the Venmo. That is going to the new computer fund. I appreciate it. Tonight's show will be a long one. One of these days this week is going to be a telethon. I was going to do it tomorrow, but I now have a business phone call in the morning. Ew. So anyways, let's see. Again, the proper conclusion is not that recession is impossible. It's that recession does not become more probable as the recovery proceeds. I just fucking love this. The joy, the laughter, the comedy. Watching these people try to explain why good isn't bad, or isn't so bad, is very funny to me. I love it, and I love you guys. So let's just start off our Monday with the idea that there is they have replicated the fusion generator experiment, and they believe it will be, within the decade, it's going to grow to a level that it will be functional. And again, part of the irony of it is that they are thinking in terms of gigantic scale, whether or not that will be possible. And that gigantic scale is based on we need to be able to run cities. We need to be able to run, and the same argument that Republicans make against solar is there too. Like, how do you run a whole city off of solar? You don't. You lower the energy needs of every house in the area by each house having solar panels, not giant fields of solar panels necessarily. And you don't, because they're easier to keep clean and functional and all that kind of stuff if they're site managed. And so you don't replace the entire power grid with it. You replace 20% of its output with them so that every house in the area, especially in a high draw area that needs air conditioning like Arizona or Nevada or Southern California or those kind of places, they're all covered in solar panels. Those houses, it becomes a normal part of it. And the smaller, more efficient they get, the better. And therefore, you don't create these giant fields of solar panels that are out in the middle of nowhere that have to be maintained. And if something happens to them, the power goes out. You have them on each individual house. And if say the house burns down, God forbid, and takes the solar panels with it, it's a 1-to-1 loss, as opposed to something destroying the solar panels outside of town and then everybody suffers because it's miles away. Okay. As tech becomes more efficient, homes require less power as well. Absolutely. And all technology is, economically speaking, deflationary. All of it. And all you have to ask is, if you bought a computer today that was only at the power of, quality of computation level that a computer in 1991 had, it would cost you about maybe $30, something like that. And it would be plastic. It'd be like a kid's toy, right? Like $50 kid's toy has the power of like a Windows machine in 1991, right? And it would cost you $40, and it would look cheap and stupid and silly, but it would work. You could actually, if you could hook it up to the internet, it would do what those computers did, and it would cost you about $30 to $60, and most of that would be the shell, the shape, the sales point of making big buttons on it that have a cat on them and that kind of stuff. Whereas if you bought a computer that today, for the cost of a computer of equal function use as far as industrial use, personal use, work use, or whatever, that was, say, it was $3,000 then, it's $3,000 now. Considering inflation being what it is, the same price point is giving you a computer that is enormous. LADWP has a huge solar field in the Mojave Desert, and that makes total sense. And that we can do. In areas where you don't have that, for example, where there's a lot of houses and the transmission lines are long and what have you, or you want to spread it around, it still means that you can have houses have solar panels on them, taking some of the load off of the power grid in the area, enough to lower it a functional percentage. And we know how elections go, based on 3, 4, 5%, maybe 1% or less. And that difference makes all the difference in the world, right? The same thing is true of technology and energy. If you lower something 1%, the extrapolation of it over time, and this is like as you better yourself, the 1% improvement thing, which is what I use every day, which is I try to improve 1% every day. It can't happen in all areas and that kind of stuff, but I try to, and you can do it just by reading and exercising more efficiently and whatever, all this kind of thing. 1%. How you think you can link up with Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass? If she'll have me, although I have saucy language, so sometimes it's better if politicians keep their distance. How do you think it's going to take a recession to cure this inflation? No, because it's not monetary inflation. That's what I'm talking about. Monetary inflation, you usually have to deal with the job market and shit like that, and this is why it doesn't match up. That's why Jerome Powell's confused by it. It was caused by two things: the COVID-19 and the reshoring of factories. I'll show you that in just a minute. I'm going to show you something. Yeah, we're always a work in progress. So 1% change at the end of the year doesn't mean you've improved 365%, because change builds on all the change stacks is the idea, right? and you're fighting entropy and some grind down due to aging and other stuff that you're always going to have to compensate for, but compared to everybody else, you're still growing, and that's the point. You're a flawed vessel, which sounds like a vegetable of some sort. All right, let me show you something else real quick. Because, by the way, don't forget to like and subscribe and give a thumbs up and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to forget to say that a bunch of times during the show. Patreon.com/AlSparks. Patrons, you make the difference. We're looking to reach 1,000. We're about halfway there. We've been stalled at that for a long time because I don't push it. But I want to thank again the patrons for helping this. But I want to, okay, USD, let's see, try to find the news on this. All right, U.S. diesel stock. Okay, here we go. So let me show you a comparison, if I may. Right now, the Russian diesel output is down like 13%, and of that 13%, 8% of it finds its winding way to U.S. markets. Usually, right now, anyways, processed through India, crude oil turned into diesel fuel, and the diesel fuel is sold from India to a U.S. partner, and a U.S. partner sells their overages to us, something like that. And so, right now, we take in a little bit of that diesel oil, and you have to make a trade-off, and when you're refining crude oil into something, into what you're going to make out of it. Diesel versus auto gasoline or jet fuel, for example, are probably the three biggest refinery usage issues. So the more diesel you need, the less gas you can have. If you got 1 barrel of oil and you're making that decision where it's going to go and how much of it'll be used, that's your decision-making process. And like airplanes, cars, trucks, right? So the idea is that trucks using diesel, cars using gas, and jet fuel. So if you want the diesel, to be cheaper, so that trucking is cheaper, because that's just the nature of it, then you want to either use less jet fuel, which is less of a factor, and you definitely want to convert less of that barrel into gasoline, the car gas, right? Specifically. Right now, it's, there used to be a period when a lot of worldwide, the vehicles were largely diesel, especially European vehicles and shittier kind of transportation trucks and the like in Africa and South America make a huge dent in how much diesel is necessary. But the West has converted since the late 80s away from diesel and, hugely, and the amount of like gasoline and then unleaded gasoline and the refining of that and mixing ethanol with it and that kind of stuff has lowered the amount of gasoline a little bit. So the number, it's not quite 1-to-1. It's more like maybe half that. You got that whole barrel, half of it's gasoline, a quarter of it is diesel, a quarter of it is jet fuel. Let's just say, for sake of argument, which makes the diesel amount a little more expensive, which makes trucking more expensive and all the other uses, especially in the developed world where you need to get this up, because gas is, people who drive cars are from, that have gasoline in them as opposed to diesel, can pay more for that fuel, and they're where all the industry is and all that kind of stuff. So it makes more sense. You make more money turning it into gas. And this is, I'm oversimplifying, but just work with me on this. Whereas diesel is the way you grease your economy with trucking and trains and other stuff, depending on the country and depending on what they use it for. That's the primary way that you power the goods that travel across the country, right? And the worse your roads are, and the fewer rail lines you have, and all that kind of stuff, the more diesel becomes necessary, or the more wide open the country is. When you're talking about Texas and Oklahoma and Montana and trucks shipping shit out of there and all that stuff, getting them to the rail lines, for example, you're going to use diesel to do that. So in that process, diesel fuel is crucial. It's something that the people keep an eye on all the time. And that tells you, if people are buying less of it, they're expecting a slowdown for all this other stuff. Oh, bless you. Thank you, Regina, Computer Fund. Thank you so much. Appreciate that for the Venmo. So long story short, too late. Diesel prices greatly affect the part of the country we all take for granted. All those trucks you see passing you on the freeway or carrying stuff, and they're just packed full of goods, be it food or be it, plastic toys or, I don't know, giant vibrator shipments, whatever they are. They're in these giant trucks, and you pass them, and they're just, in your head when you're on the road, they're just a brick. The giant brick passes you. But ultimately, it's got to get where it's going because myriads of people want to buy those eggs and dildos and whatever else is in the truck. And not at the same time, unless that's your thing, in which case it's none of my business. Not here to yuck your yum. So those trucks need to get where they're going. And the higher the price of diesel, that, chips its way into the cost of whatever they're dragging around, right? I'm not yucking your yum, Doc. I promise. I'm fine. Anyways, so let's say it's a truck full of, the kidney. Maybe. So either way, that part of inflation is a real thing. That's where energy prices go up. The cost of getting something from point A to your mouth or your butthole, none of my business, is as that raises, so does that extrapolate over every unit that traverses that distance, right? And so the cost of fuel factors into an economy in a way that we all it's sort of almost invisible to some degree. And that's where the Republicans have jumped on this idea that the fuel costs that went up because Russia's invasion of Ukraine and a bunch of other things is Biden's fault. And they're going to use the fact that, Biden's declared war on American energy and therefore blah-de-blah. Okay. Let's jump back, if we could, for a second. And it's the morning show, and you'll forgive me for jumping in. It's House Sparks Mornings, Megaworldwide. Like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show. Welcome. Hi, how are you? There's one story at the top of this, but I'm going to jump into the rest of these articles, and I want to show you something real quick. This, ladies and gentlemen, if I may, and I think that I might, is indeed a series of articles, largely from last year, about diesel fuel. The diesel market is in a perfect storm as prices surge, supplies dwindle ahead of winter. This is October of 2022. How a diesel shortage could cripple the U.S. economy, October 27, 2022. U.S. diesel supplier warns businesses to prepare for shortages, higher prices for consumers, October 31st, 2022. Tankers could profit if U.S. restricts gasoline and diesel exports, September 1st, 2022. U.S. must build strategic diesel stocks, August 30th, 2022. Now, this is May of last year. Record diesel prices down here. Record diesel prices. Tight supplies could be next blow to the U.S. economy. U.S. diesel fuel retail price per month 2020. So, needless to say, the impact on the rising price of diesel caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the limitation of those kind of things, or the expected limitation on those, and that many of which did not manifest as heavily as they thought, created this idea that like an oh shit last year. If you'll recall, this is part of our talking points graveyard that I was talking about last year. That the just like pulling at their shit. Everybody, as my dad would say, jumping through their shirt that everybody did. The rending of garments. Turned out to be, for the most part, a whole bunch of shit. Didn't, it played out to some degree, but only, the obviously the measurable stuff coming off the market. And it didn't affect the U.S. at all. The prices went up a little bit because we got first in line, and we produce enough, almost, to cover all of our needs, especially around diesel. We just don't sell it to the rest of the world. And the price of it going up actually benefited a lot of oil producers. And we'll get to the hybrids versus electric car and all that kind of stuff in a moment. But let me look at it. Let me show you this here. Meanwhile, this is April 5th. Oh, Reuters, get out of here. I'm not supporting you. Shoot. Column. Global diesel prices fall as economic slowdown intensifies. Okay. In the United States, there is not, I don't know if you've noticed from the shit I was showing you earlier, a quote-unquote economic slowdown. You notice that? As a matter of fact, Jerome Powell's entire job right now, apparently, is to keep the U.S. economy from overheating. Even the people who are stupid get that part right. The global diesel price slowdown thing comes almost entirely from, again, the removal of one aspect, or the insertion, I suppose, or the overemphasis in the equation on one particular area. Does anybody have any idea what area the global economic world has overemphasized for a very long time, and now its collapse is making them wake up to the fact that they were buying a bullshit story for a very long time? Ding, dum, 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 bum, 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 rink, half-ooby doo ba boom. I'll give you a hint. It's a country. Dum, 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 dum. China. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. China. That's exactly right. There is not an economic slowdown going on. A global economic slowdown. There is not. Everywhere else in the world, everyone is ramping up. Even Germany, whose like manufacturing sector had eaten shit for years. It is not a slowdown when you just simply remove one aspect of a conversation. If you have a number, if you have an equation, and one of the numbers is no longer relevant to the equation itself, you remove that from your computations to see how the actual economy is going. And if you don't, you will get a false. You will solve improperly for X. You will your solution will be wrong. Trying to be nice about it, and I just fucking can't. And again, it is happy CSL Day to everyone who celebrates. That includes me and Johnny Million and everybody else. Can't Stop Lying's birthday was yesterday. If you're just showing up, reminder, wish him a happy birthday, belated. Many of you did yesterday, by the way, on the actual day. But there you go. Now, hold up, getting some Motang. I understand, please. China. So, correct spelling, is it? So, let me be abundantly clear. When they're talking about this whole, like, global economic slowdown, what they're really talking about is that there is a sector of the economic world that followed the Ray Dalios of the world, and they believed the hype longer than other people did. And I have to say, I had an awakening that happened while I was there, and many of you will recall watching this. And as I still stand by my love of the Chinese culture and the people themselves. But what happened when Xi Jinping took over the fucking country, it was a sea change in how the country operates, and it went from being a uh, real communism to fake communism to an emperor-based system right now. That's what it is. And it didn't take them long to do it because a communist system, the way they had it arranged, allows for that kind of takeover much easier. Our believe me, the dictators of the world who have been wanting to, seize back their countries from even rudimentary democratic systems that had sort of crept in over the last couple of decades. Those folks had an easy time of it in some areas. In the United States, they did not. Donald Trump was part of that. It became trendy to be a dictator for a while, and it's like, people are trying it on like a hat. It's the gender fluidity of geopolitics. And it came upon us fairly quickly, and some people responded to it well, and some people did not, and some people panicked, and others did not, and what have you. Point being is that the United States, our immune system, our political immune system, was able to push back on that. And it's still dealing with it. We got long COVID in terms of our dealing with Trump and his ilk, but we're going to make it. Russia had and China both had a pre-existing condition where they were already primed to have a virus like this have a greater impact. And that's what, China specifically fell very easily to it. Russia, even, ironically enough, the way it played out was its attacks on other countries, which is sort of habitual. You know what I mean? It's like the person who gets grumpy when they get sick versus the person who just goes quiet and falls apart. In Russia's case, it's like they lashed out when they got sick. When, China got sick, it kept went in a corner and hid. So we'll see more of this as it plays out. But our immune system in the United States is working very well. It's not fun when you're getting over an illness like this, but that's what we're doing. That's what it looks like. And anybody who's been sick on any major way or has had some sort of like physical rehab that they had to go through, which I spent a good 5 years doing at one point. And I felt like I'm physically kind of back to normal for the first time in like over the last year. I think I clarified physically myself in that area. But that, the road back can be rough. It can be a long walk. And it's never fun, but you recognize the progress along the way, and you worry about slipping back and all that kind of stuff. You worry about, whether whatever you have is in its own form of remission, as it were. And politically, that's where we are right now. We're worried about, we think we're in remission, but we're worried about every bump, needs to be checked out because, oh God, what if it comes back? And because we're not out of the woods yet, we're still healing from it. It makes total sense. But again, China and Russia both had a pre-existing condition for this disease of dictatorship. And it has taken over so quickly. Let me show you something, if I may. I think the Daily Beast had this one as well. But this has been a running story in China right now that I really haven't had a chance to cover so much. Where is, let's see. Oh, there is a piece of Schadenfreude kind of news. But let's see. Yeah, it's going to be hidden back in here. All right, hold on. I'm going to have to look this up separately. It'll come up this way because it's the weird part of it. There is, oh, Washington Post, you're so adorable. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then I'm gonna look up one more thing. Yeah. So this is what's been going on in China over the last little bit, and it's one of those things of like it's an all you need story. Xi Jinping is purging anybody who isn't a yes man from the heads of all the important agencies in China. Unfortunately, he's a stupid man. It would be one thing if he was some sort of tactical mastermind who could play 5D chess or some shit like that. He's not. All of his ideas that are specifically his, that came either because of him and his team putting them together or them just nodding when he said, we should give this a try, have singularly fucked up the lives of more Chinese people than anyone since Mao's Great Leap Backward, where he starved tens of millions of his own people. Let me say this as clearly as I possibly can. Xi Jinping is dumb. The only reason anybody follows him is because he's also cruel. And his cruelty scares people away from pointing out the things around him that he does that are dumb. And the resulting circumstance that China has found itself in is to be run by probably the most idiotic inbred style king since England almost lost the crown, since I mean the I would argue the French aristocracy when they had lost their fucking mind, where inbreeding had turned generations of British royalty into just gibbering idiots. I'm not kidding. His institution of the three red lines alone sped up the collapse of the economic collapse of China's real estate market, which again is 30% of their entire economy. It made it 40% of their economy. It grew it and then collapsed it. It was the worst possible plan that you could implement. There are dumber things I'm sure you could do, but getting them done would be impossible. Like, I don't know, burning all the properties, that the excess property in the country, that kind of shit. Setting off a series of charges, detonating all of them, which, again, I've shown you multiple places where they've done part of it, but you couldn't do all of it, that kind of thing. The three red lines that he set up as an economic backstop against what he thought was a growing problem is the real estate equivalent of the one-child policy. It was madness and idiocy in a perfect storm, a tornado of fucked up logic and CYA and just like a whirlwind of ass kissing made it possible. Idiotic. Yeah, Dan Bongino kind of dumb. Yes, that level stupid. Where you're the kind of stupid where you read something aloud and and then you immediately tell people what you've just read, and it's the opposite of what you've just read, and everybody around you goes, that's not what you just read. That's not what it said. What? How in the world? And if you pipe up and say that's not what that says at all, you get killed. Mm-hmm. So, China's president doubles down on ruling for life, excluding potential future leaders or factional rivals. This is his lesson that he's learned from Putin's paranoia. Apparently, it's contagious. Oh my God, we have a Bongholio face emote in Twitch. How terrifying! Jesus Christ. Xi Jinping has stacked senior Chinese Communist Party ranks with loyalists, showing China's ever more powerful leader favors loyalty over merit and wants rule insulated from criticism or questioning, which always works out so well, and it has worked out so well in history. It's amazing. The appointments, which were revealed on Sunday, have raised concern that Xi has surrounded himself with yes men as he leads China through what he called the choppy waters of the future, some of which are of his own making. Yeah, some of them aren't. He definitely took over when shit was about to hit the fan, but he steered the fan towards the shit, and while consuming, I don't know, lots of fiber and rotten eggs. Been done. The country is facing domestic economic troubles. 26% youth unemployment, 50% total unemployment in the cities. That's what you would call economic troubles. And worsening global tensions, like where everybody's just woken up to the fact that China's ruling party has been just stealing everybody's intellectual property for a while so that they could eventually build a domed city style country, which is just like, we don't need you fuckers anymore. Like a teenager, like a 12-year-old packing a bag and going, I'm running away. And then they, make it to the end of the driveway and go, I'm going to walk into traffic. Yeah, that kind of, all right. And worsening global tensions as Xi doubles down on threats to annex Taiwan. At the conclusion of the party's twice-a-decade Congress on Sunday, the new members of the most powerful political bodies were revealed to include Xi acolytes in the most senior positions, with factional rivals swept away. The already poor female representation at the top also erased. For the first time in 25 years, there was no woman in the Politburo. And there has never been a woman on the highest seat of power, the Politburo Standing Committee. As expected, she was reappointed for a president-breaking third term as head of party. Right. Yeah, I love that at least they didn't say elected. That's nice. He's appointed, and he's not a president. He's the chairman of the Communist Party. He's he presides over it. That doesn't make you a president, right? Which also, the new Politburo is an emphatic statement of Xi's dominance over the party. Xi has dispersed with the old factional system such as it was. He has crushed expectations that he would nurture a successor. He has ignored the informal age caps on officials serving in top positions. Yeah, this dude's let me explain to you how stupid. This dude right here looked at Kim Jong-un's situation and said, that looks sweet. Yeah. And so I want to remind you of this. Yes, every time Trump pats this fucker on the back, yes, he's a murderous asshole. Yes, he's purging people. Yes, Trump wishes he had everybody around him clapping everywhere he goes and clapping when he goes poo-poo like a fucking toddler. But more than anything, you need to know that Trump is championing a man who is stupid, who is a big dum-dum. He is not smart. As a matter of fact, it's a point of mockery amongst the average Chinese people that you have to read this like Xi Jinping thought on the main websites, and he's putting out this idea that he's like, he wants George Washington level quotes that are attributed to him, just like Mao's Little Red Book. There's like a digital version, essentially, of it every day in the newspaper, which is garbage. It's largely rehashed shit that other people think or stuff that they put up that, that he's allegedly read. I won't even say that he's read it. Yeah, deep thoughts with Xi Jinping, exactly. That's why, but Trump is envious of Xi, and Xi is envious of Kim Jong-un. That's how fucking stupid these people are. It really boils down to that idea of like not knowing the difference between fear and respect, or believing that respect comes from fear, or believing that fear is better than respect because you can lose respect. Respect takes work to maintain, whereas fear is easy, which is, by the way, the root behind clickbait and some of our dear friends in the political vlogosphere on YouTube and Twitch that try to scare the shit out of you. Just saying that they could earn your respect by being right all the time, and actually not, making it a point not to waste your fucking time. Or they could just make you so scared not to click. Oh my God, what happens if I got to read this? I got to see this. I got to read this. I got to see this. It's why none of their smiles are real. You ever notice that? Anyways, I love you guys. Hi, how are you? Did you talk about China-Russian naval vessels off Alaska? Yeah, don't worry about it. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah. That's a bunch of noise. That's their response to the AUKUS agreement, and it's pitiful. Can I show you one more? Let me see if I can find the Let's see, Chinese. Let's see if I can find the image of it. Maybe not. No. So then we eat. No, there's yeah. Da, 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 da. Huh. No, I'll have to look it up later. I'll show you guys this afternoon. But hold on. I showed you some of these images before. We looked at some of the video of it. But as many people you'll recognize, yeah, this is Typhoon Daksuri. These images, by the way, are not of, the Jersey Shore area of China. These images are not from, the Alabama of China. These images are from the Washington, D.C. of China. Now, one of the things that you guys will notice whenever we see stuff about floods, for example, is that the rushing waters of a flood can be terrifying and destructive and can tear houses out and kill people and the like. But oftentimes it's the follow-on. This is, by the way, this is the Beijing airport right here. The follow-on after effects of a flood: standing water, disease, the erosion of the foundations of buildings, the rotting of wood, all of that is the worst effects of it. If you don't, if the mitigation efforts aren't enormous at the time, or there's not the big rain isn't followed by a light rain over time. That's, again, imagine this shot from Dulles. Imagine that shot from Reagan International in DC and the news cycle that it would be. Imagine this, the reflecting pool outside the Lincoln Memorial. The Forbidden City was flooded for the first time in 180 years. This is heartbreaking if you have any friends in that area, and I do. Many of whom, because of the government, I cannot contact anymore for a myriad of reasons, not the least of which is that they can't be heard talking to me because While is well known that I love Chinese culture and Chinese people, the Chinese government I am not a fan of, and I have been pretty open about that for the last few years. So, needless to say, I'm on one of the lists. And we occasionally get some trolls when I focus on China that talk about this, that push back or what have you. But a lot of those folks, the places that they would do that trolling from are underwater. And even if look, if you're a paid troll that works for the internet research agency that the Wagner Group put together, and you're making minimum wage being an online dick posing as a BLM supporter and a right-wing maggot in Facebook groups and all that kind of stuff. While I don't like what you're doing, I understand your options are limited and I feel for you. And that's why when we have trolls in here, we laugh it off and we treat them with a bit of, a shrug and a wink, because a good portion of them, quite frankly, are not genuine in what they are talking about. Even if they are all in on what they are saying, a lot of times it's cut and paste that they have, it's an if then response. Never mind, the amount of stuff that pops up online, the AIing of the thread, like threads on Twitter, on Shitter right now. But I want those folks to know that's you can get paid to be argumentative. Yes, you can. Well, I mean that's the thing though. Yeah, AI trolls are a real thing. They're basically chatbots. They're if then bots. If someone says this, then say this. If they say this, then this. If you don't understand, just hit them with some sort of random, oh yeah, well what about Agent Orange kind of shit. You're like, well, we had trials and we now have rules about that. That's what. Can you take some pictures of your cats and use them as your green screen? That's not a bad idea. Well, it's interesting because, hold on. Yeah, boys. Yeah, boys. I don't know if you can hear me. Hold on. He was in here earlier, and I have my little cat cam set up, and he was in here as I was getting started, and then he ran off because I had to go get my shoes, and then he. Hold on, I'll get him. Give me a second. God damn it! Talk amongst yourselves. Yeah, boys. I gave him a snack earlier because he was bothering me. He was in between my feet while I was trying to do stuff, and and he's out cold. He probably heard it and it'll be on a delay and he'll come down. Yes, I went chip hunting. I'm sorry, but that's true. Anyways, back to where we were. Now let's look, if we can. Now something to annoy us about the sublime to the idiotic. There's a video, and I got to find it. CSL, maybe. And by the way, it's official CSL day to everybody who celebrates. You can do whatever he wants today. So I mean, all I ever make are mild requests. But apparently, they had a RFK was on with either Hannity or one of these dipshits for a minor town hall or something. And there's a clip that I've heard of. I've not watched it, about him talking about the like Russia invading Ukraine. And if it's anything like this, which is wait, hold on. Whoops, let me go back to here. If it's anything like where'd he go? Where'd he go? Hold on one second. Give me 1 second. It's where'd he go? I had it. I thought I had it. RFK. Okay, there we go. There we go. He did this thing about Where is he? Where are you? What's happening? He was talking about Russia in this thread. Oh my god. This is, I didn't even see this one. Holy shit. This is me scrolling through Twitter trying to find this. This is him. This is the problem is that remember when he got caught being an anti-Semitic twerp and pushed back on it by going, nobody's better for Israel than ever, whatever. All the friends he had made being anti-Ukraine in the Jimmy Dore, Max Blumenthal, Aaron Mate world, all turned on him instantly. And this, like I said, you cannot rely on like that group of people, the anti-Ukraine, anti-Israel group, because first of all, they're lunatics, and genuinely, they're crazy. There is no logic to what they're saying, and at best, they are simply blindly anti-Semitic and just they're like, I don't know, if Russia does it to Ukraine and Israel does it to Palestine, I could hate it when Israel does it to Palestine, but I don't hate it when Russia does it to Ukraine, because the leadership of Israel is Jewish and the leadership of Ukraine is Jewish. So, see? All right. Anyways, he did some sort of, when they're doing building 7 shit, that's when you know your candidacy is going great. There was let's see. He did this breakdown of his ideas around how Ukraine had it coming. Same shit. And it was about mutual assured destruction. That he was basically saying that let's see, Robert F. Kennedy, somebody. Yeah, I don't know. Junior. Anyways, we'll talk about that later this afternoon, because it'll aggravate the shit out of me. But the essence of it is that he's making the case, beg your pardon, that Ukraine shouldn't have been walking around with that short sword. Which, interestingly enough, I had some randos on Shitter think that when I made that remark about Cornel West's argument, that I was making a joke. I was not. I was making I was making an analogy that I felt was apt and direct. I don't find that funny. I am trying to put it in as clear a language as I can, that I believe that the people who are defending Russia are saying it had a reason for attacking Ukraine and that they just had to do it is the exact same as someone saying, well, she shouldn't have been walking around wearing that short skirt at that hour if she didn't want to be attacked. It wasn't the guy's fault. It was her fault. That's the same fucking logic to me. And so when it comes up, I will post that analogy. And there are a couple of people who think that that's me making a joke about it. I am not. I am comparing what I would say is equal language. And if you heard someone say this thing, which you allegedly find horrifying, and that's the alleged part, and you parallel it to what people say about, Russia's attack on Ukraine, and you get offended about it, explain why. Yes, so then tonight is a marathon. That's right. Yeah, I call it shitter because of Xi Jinping, and I spell it like this. I just put it in the chat. Xitter, shitter. Makes sense, don't you think? Yeah, you had money in your wallet, so I had to rob you. Plus, you were going to get a job that I wanted because people we both went in for the interview, and I told them to go fuck themselves, and if they didn't hire me, I was going to burn the building down. And you went, I think I'd be a good employee, and that was, that's it. Twatter. Where Russia did have a reason for invading. They want Ukraine wealth and resource for themselves. Yes, it's true. I mean, this is standard imperialistic shit. China's like a boyfriend or girlfriend that destroys your life, then wants money to stop. Not quite sure what you mean. I get where you're going, I think, but yes, it wasn't a robbery. It was an aspiration to gain access to your money in the conduct of my official duties. That's right. So if you ever see me post that, that analogy and put it in quotes and make it a piece of dialogue, which is how I often do it, as I did when it came to Cornel West's argument on, I believe he was on Hannity's show, was the clip I was responding to. That just know I'm not kidding. I'm not doing that to be cute. I'm not doing that to make a joke. I'm fucking enraged. Yeah. Because a lot of Elon Musk's funding comes from Xi anyways. I think calling it shitter is a great way to do it. Now, this is really weird. And again, I wish everybody a speedy recovery. Being a billionaire dick, even still, is not it's not a capital crime. But Musk says he may need surgery. We'll get MRI on his back and neck. This is so weird. Elon Musk to receive an MRI of his neck and upper back on Monday and may require surgery. The 52-year-old said he's a year younger than me. On his Xi platform, Shitter, the artist formerly known as Shitter, the world's richest person said he will know this week whether surgery will be required ahead of his proposed cage fight with Meta Platforms co-founder Mark Zuckerberg. He previously said he might need an operation to strengthen the titanium plate holding my C5 and C6 vertebra together. As the chief executive officer Tesla, blah, 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 held his intense interest in mega back pain. Blah, blah. Yeah, notorious workaholic has said he has suffered from mega back pain after a bout with a sumo wrestler. The post about the sumo match was accompanied by another with a photo of what appears to be a makeshift ring for the Japanese sport. Musk mentioned the injury last year after challenging Russian Vladimir Putin to single combat over Ukraine, which is just horse shit, by the way. Zuckerberg said, I'm ready today. I'm not holding my breath. Yeah. So weird. Where's this business? Shit. I don't understand what's going on here. Like, really? You have billions of dollars, and this is what are you doing? What are you doing, dummy? Yeah, you're a multi-billion. Do people just get that bored? Is that what happens? I don't understand. Fuck's sake. He supposedly hurt his back doing that. Apparently, that is what occurred. Where'd it go? There you go. Yeah, this. Apparently here. He apparently hurt his back in that match with that sumo wrestler. Fucking hell. What? Is he wearing a Jedi robe? No, he's just, I don't know. He didn't like how the diaper looked or something. Just so dumb. Why? What? Okay. I would like to remind you that Elon Musk has been a financial barnacle most of his life, and none of his ideas are his own. For the record, he's just one of those guys. He's been able to Peter Principle himself to the front of the line. And if it wasn't for government contracts, we wouldn't even be talking about that dude. Anytime Trump or Elon Musk talk about someone else being smart, just count on it. Fucking dumb. The prediction on what will happen in the Georgia federal court tonight, the 5 p.m. deadline. We'll talk about that today because it's going to happen right as we're on the air. Because I start my show, just right after that. So, because I want to see what's said afterwards. Yeah. So I'm just for the record, like anytime those people go like this guy's got the fucking moxie, you're like, okay, that person's also an idiot or an ass kisser. And I don't know why, by the way, because he doesn't need back surgery because he's never worked hard enough. I don't think it came from work. It came from an optional injury. And I don't know that he had that surgery before. Jesse Ventura says he's friends with Elon. Rumor has it, I've never heard that before. Now, at one point, I was down in Marina del Rey surfing. And long story short, I took the wrong pull off the right pipe, depending on how you look at it. And I ended up in a small Piper Cub, duct taped to the underside of it, actually. And it landed at SpaceX. And after a little while, after nightfall, I was able to free myself by chewing through it. Rambled my way inside, and in SpaceX, behind a giant X in the middle of the floor that apparently they had to remove from shitter headquarters, is an elevator that takes you down into an area where aliens had once taken over the place, and kept in these capsules are the bodies of the Marines that were fighting off the aliens that got their DNA mixed with them and became not, I don't want to spoil it, but super soldiers, yeah. And apparently they were buried at different sites throughout the nation, and Building 7 fell down because one of them got a boner in his sleep. 9/11 was caused by a wet dream, according to my friend Elon. I can't just... Some people you improvise as them and the weirdest shit comes out. Yeah. So, yeah, that's true story, though. Just saying. Looks like a baby's arm. Wow. So, Joe Rogan always talks about how smart Elon Musk is. I rest my case. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah. Conspiracy, Jesse. Oh, thanks, Steven. I appreciate that. It's one of those that nobody does, and I'm amazed. I think I've got to take it to Saturday Night Live now. If they'll ever stop hiring bad people. I don't know how else to put that. Yeah. I can't do Bobcat and Jesse Ventura. I'll throw my own. I won't be able to sing. All right, see, I'll see if I can find it as well in my stuff, but we'll manage. Don't work too hard. It's your holiday, so fantastic. Come on, my Bob plate is better. Thanks very much. I always worry about pegging my microphone, though. Pegging the needle in not pegging my microphone. Did you audition for SNL? No, I've never auditioned for SNL. Well, that's not true. I auditioned when I was 18 for SNL, and it was when Michael, what's his name, who was he was in Breakfast Club and all that, when he was on there for a season, and it was pretty terrible. And they literally decided no one under the age of 21 ever again while I was sitting in the office before I ever got a chance to read. Yeah. Anthony Michael Hall. Yeah, right. Kate McKinnon is fantastic. This is true. Yeah. Yeah. Pee Wee Herman was rejected by SNL too. Yeah, exactly. So good. I watched, I gotta say, Pee Wee's Big Adventure, again, obviously. And I had part of me wishes that Tim Burton hadn't been the director, because I see Tim Burton more in the visual aspect of that than I see Paul Rubens in some ways. It's a good trust game. That's fine. And in many ways, it's, it's like the optimistic version of Edward Scissorhands, and it's super silly. And it's interesting that, the Austin Powers borrowing Tom Cruise playing Austin Powers in the meta moment of that, like having, like them make the version of Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and that he's credited in it. Paul Reubens is credited in it. It says starring Pee-wee Herman as himself, which I mean, legally you can absolutely do. And I have no doubt that at some point, because he wanted him to be sort of considered a real person, that Paul was able to work under that name legally in terms of SAG and stuff. Yeah. I'm trying to use the phone! Right, which is so great. But goddamn, so, yeah. It's so good and such a sweetheart and whatever. And I saw this interview with him because I was watching, I don't know if you've seen it, where he's sitting around talking about it, because I got fascinated about the making of it. And I watched this, he was on stage someplace talking about it. And he goes, I tried very hard once Pee-wee became a thing to not allow myself to be photographed not as Pee-wee. He goes, except that one time. Which, he's like, there was definitely one time where I was photographed out of character. And he was talking about his mugshot. And it was such a great turn and way of dealing with it.
Aging Mr. Herman. Mr. Herman.
Right, that whole point. Yeah, Kevin, that's not going to happen. Good luck, though. Look, guys, we've got one. We've got a real wannabe troll in the wild. We've got a maggot showed up. Congrats, Kevin. Keep believing that. I guess as rubber stamp things to put in, that'll. What are you gonna do? That's as close as you're gonna get.
Joe Biden will be the last Democratic president for the Crooked Joe and the crooked crime family will blah blah blah.
Yeah. He's been cutting and pasting that shit for days. Yeah, it's adorable. Here's the thing. It's kind of fun to see. It's like a zoo. You know what I mean? Like, some things might be dangerous in the wild, but you see them, in a little chat room cell, and you're like, oh, all right, sure, yeah, I guess that. Oh yeah, I guess that would. Guess those teeth might be sharp if they were out and about and whatever, but they're never gonna leave here. I guess it's a rough one, whatever. Meanwhile, Trump's in deep shit. We'll cover that later on this afternoon. We're getting near the. Yes. No, we like trolls around here. We appreciate them. They're the ones who help us spread out through the interwebs. It's fantastic. We need them in some ways. I mean, there's obviously a limit. But, yeah. I need the sound of ducks quacking, followed by crickets, followed by a robotic German voice. Oh, for the... You sounded like Dr. Strangelove just then? Oh, I see.
Animals can be bred and slaughtered?
Yeah, we love trolls around here. We don't care. The Trump Zoo is enormous. Yeah, it's big. It's certainly bigger than his library. Oh, boy. Yeah. So, yes, the trolls chum the waters. That's exactly right. And they let us show up in the algorithm in other areas, and I appreciate it. In some ways, they balance out. They're the ones that allow me to swear. Because swearing, as I do on the show, I know some of you are shocked, that diminishes my, the algorithm. It kind of bumps me down in the algorithm because of, it makes me less ad friendly or something. But those guys make up for it by helping us spread out, wider. It's the idea that, we may never hit bottom, but we'll scrape the shit out of the sides. We're the little show that could. Yes, Pee Wee Herman hosted SNL in character the entire show, which is a great comeuppance, considering they didn't accept Paul Rubin as an actor, as a performer. Because he had multiple characters. He had lots of characters. And his death scene in, you guys have probably seen his death scene from Buffy the movie, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie, is just lovely. Do you know that he wanted his mugshot. He wanted in Buffy. He had a thing in his contract that he wanted to look as much like his mugshot as possible. Yeah. Yeah, Mystery Men is fantastic as the spleen. Yeah. Troll server purpose in nature. They're like flies and maggots. If it wasn't for them, they're going to get rid of the rotting corpses and shit. Yes. The Trump library will have 4,000 square finger. Well, no, because they're going to watch them try to. How long do you think we are? And this is a good question on our way out the door. And by the end of today, I have a couple of goals that I'm setting up with the show to expand to where we can have polls during the show. Won't that be fun? And we already did that. We can't do it again. It's wrong. But it will be a character on my SNL or my audition. Just saying. How long would it take before the Trump kids start trying to sell paintings? After Trump goes to jail? After next year? What do you think? 6 months? They do it ironically at first, or are they just too lazy and do NFTs? Thank you, Alicia. I love you guys. Loved him in Blow. Yeah. Paul Rubens was a great performer and a lovely human being. Thanks, Gail. We're at the end of this show. We only got 5 minutes left. Now is the part of the show where I'm trying to wind it down and turn it into a real, just to annoy, I guess, the Tony Michaels viewers that come in late and then have to rewind, so that they can learn all about China, and how the world is getting better all the time in spite of Donald Trump and his ilk. And again, like I said, next year, AI will be one of the biggest debate points. It won't be this year because they don't understand it. And next year, they're going to have to pretend to understand it. But watching Joe Biden talk about AI is going to be super fun. And even more fun will be everybody else who pretends to know more about it. I'm vamping. Nope, I'm just saying a proper outro because I never get to. How confident am I that Trump will go to jail? I don't think he's going to go to jail. I think he'll have home confinement because of his age. I think he'll end up in home confinement. Pol Pot style in that regard. But there are a bunch of people around him that are close to his age that very well may. Steve Bannon's going back to jail, more than likely. And nobody's going to be able to pardon him this time. Deranged Don Jr. Tour 2024, right. Cheers. Thank you guys so much. By the way, on your way out the door, like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show. I'm gonna end early because I got work to do. I'm gonna go do stuff anyways, and I need to go find that clip for this afternoon. So I'll see you guys at 3, and then I'll be at my time, and then I'll be on long tonight. It's gonna be a long one. It is. It's gonna be a long one. Just saying. And yeah, Bannon is dangerous. Well, not for long. I'm just saying. Home confinement at Mar-a-Lago just sounds wrong. Yeah, it won't be Mar-a-Lago. More than likely, it'll be Bedminster. He may even have to go back to Trump Tower, which is ironic. We'll see. I mean, he won't be able to move between them, so he's going to have to pick the one you like the most that you can pay the bills on, and then that's that. And Trump Tower's got some fucking problems you better deliver. When do I not, K-Link? Honestly. Come on. You can't, Nick. You can always rewatch it later. That's the great thing about this show is that you can watch it anytime you want to. I'm just saying. That's the thing about the internet. I'm just saying. You can also fast forward the parts where I'm vamping and being silly. If you don't like my Jesse Ventura, I don't know what's wrong with you, but you don't have to watch it. I like right up there with my whole, where is it? I know I have a graphic in here somewhere, don't I? Where the fuck is it? That's that. Where'd my, subscribe thing go? Oh, I don't have one on this one. That's right. Shit, because it's the other screen. Sorry. Yeah, right in the... I need to have a graphic that comes up like my satire graphic that says, impersonation, just so you don't think it's the real person. I'm that good.
I ain't got time to bleed. Come on now. You guys are fantastic. But you know what's best?